Hot news knocked them in the teeth. How Trump turned the 800,000 federal workers who are expected to miss their second paycheck in the coming days are the most extreme example yet of a negotiating tactic President Trump has used repeatedly since taking office. He creates you or threatens to create you a calamity, and then insists he will address the problem only if his adversary capitulates to a separate demand. Trump has described this approach as creating leverage and negotiating, but Democrats and other opponents have said it amounts to hostage-taking. It's sort of like bartering with stolen goods, Senate Minority Leader Charles E. Schumer DNY said Tuesday. Trump has used the same playbook during confrontations with Canada, Mexico, Japan, China, South Korea, North Korea, and the European Union in the past 2 years with mixed success. He imposed tariffs on steel and aluminum imports from a host of nations, saying it was necessary to force changes in other countries' trade practices. He said he would withdraw the United States from the North Atlantic Treaty Organization if other countries didn't spend more money on their militaries, a move that eventually helped pave the way for the departure of Defense Secretary Jim Mattis. It is a well-worn tactic from Trump's business career, but this is the first time the livelihoods of so many U.S. workers and households have hung in the balance as a result of it. It's a Trumpian way of negotiating, longtime friend Larry Kudlow told a radio interviewer last year before joining the White House. You knock them in the teeth, but there is mounting evidence that the firm resistance from Democrats is forcing Trump to take his threats much further than he thought necessary. There are signs the lengthy shutdown is starting to damage the U.S. economy, as consumer confidence has fallen to its lowest level of Trump's presidency, and a growing number of federal workers are expressing exasperation at being required to continue working without pay. Many have visited food banks and are accepting free meals, while others have begun selling possessions online and are bracing for mortgage payments due next week. Trump's strategy of using such a large segment of the U.S. workforce as leverage has never before been used on such a scale. Presidents typically, with a powerful wall or steel barrier, crime rates and drugs will go substantially down all over the U.S., Trump wrote on Twitter on Tuesday. The Dems know this. The White House did not respond to requests for comment. In the early months of his administration, Trump repeatedly told top aides, including then National Economic Council Director Gary Cohn, that imposing tariffs on imports was a way to create leverage and force other leaders to make concessions. Cohn would argue that tariffs imposed on U.S. allies actually made it harder for the White House to build an alliance to counter China, according to people familiar with the matter who spoke on the condition of anonymity to reveal internal White House deliberations. Trump also insisted that he would pull U.S. troops off the Korean peninsula if South Korea didn't agree to modify a trade deal to make it better for the United States. Trump often talks about leverage and power in private meetings with aides. He has said he's not afraid to make any threat, this person said. He assumes in the early days of the shutdown, the president grew frustrated with Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell of Kentucky. And then House Speaker. Trump is running the shutdown as a reality television producer, said Dan Eberhart, a prominent Republican donor. The problem is one foreign diplomat, who spoke on the condition of anonymity to reveal how some foreign leaders perceive Trump, said the U.S. president at first unnerved European leaders and scared them with his rhetoric. Now you just know, all of life is a negotiation, and that every negotiation is a zero-sum game, former Trump aide Cliff Sims writes in his new book, Team of Vipers, describing Trump's outlook. There's no such thing. Trump did not initially plan on forcing the government shutdown. McConnell and Ryan, but he reversed course 2 days before funding was scheduled to lapse, under pressure from conservative activists, and decided to employ his leverage strategy for the first time with Congress. Several White House, this guy is not really good at thinking his way out of the problem, said Timothy Naftali, a clinical associate professor of public service at New York University. He just ups the. Trump has followed the same script at least 8 times before. He threatened to we're polite, we're reasonable, but we also will not be pushed around, Trudeau said in June. Trump threatened to impose tariffs on all automotive imports from Europe unless European leaders drop tariffs on US-produced cars. We won't talk at all with a country if it is with a gun to our heads, French President Emmanuel Macron said in March. Trump has used the tactic most often with China, slapping duties on $250 billion of goods imported from China and threatening to go even further if China does not agree to major changes in the way it trades with the United States. How could you negotiate with someone when he puts a knife on your neck? China's deputy. Trump has embraced this tough guy persona. During a news conference, Trump has not moved to impose tariffs on Japanese cars, but he has continued threatening to do it unless Japan makes it easier for US-made cars to be sold in Japan. In many of these cases, Trump's hardball tactics ultimately have brought the foreign counterparts to the negotiating table, though whether they will prove effective is unclear. In many of these cases, Republican lawmakers have grumbled about Trump's tactics but have done little to intervene. The shutdown this offer includes pressure points that Trump himself has created as a way to try to force capitulation from Democrats. It was Trump who moved. Congress says it's hostage-taking because they're not the ones controlling the leverage, said Paul Winfrey, who was Deputy Domestic Policy Advisor at the White House until leaving last year. Congress has routine. Lawmakers do tend to wait until the last minute to pass controversial pieces of legislation, which is one reason they failed to avert a shutdown. But Trump's critics, he can't be successful on holding these folks hostage, because he will do it again on the debt ceiling and the end of the appropriation cycle, Sr. Mark R. Warner. Neither Democrats nor Republicans said they felt certain how the shutdown would end and whether Trump would eventually back down. White House official. Trump is trying to harness the drama of political theater to get what he wants, Winfrey said. The problem is that
raindrop, drop top, smoking, no cooking the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Looking up, open the park, pot.